Hello and welcome back to the Rise and Align podcast, where we talk about all things high vibrational. We're your hosts. My name is Demi.
And I am Haley. And today we are talking about what we believe to be the secret to a happy relationship. And this can honestly apply to any relationship. It doesn't have to be with a significant other. But with that being said, like, relationships can be one of the most rewarding parts of physical reality, but also the most challenging. And it's something we all have to navigate, and something that we grow through life. I think we learn how to have better relationships as we go throughout life and experience what it might be like to have a bad relationship, and what it's like to have a good relationship, and what you look for in a relationship. In my opinion, like, what it comes down to when you are creating relationships or trying to grow a relationship is like how you feel about yourself, and how, if you're happy, like, I think if you are happy and fulfilled, that can bring so much into a relationship with other people.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, we're always talking about how you are your own attraction point for your reality. How you feel is determining the vibration that you put out and what you're attracting back from the universe. So, I mean, I have had a lot of challenges in this area, definitely. I think if you are a codependent person, you're kind of taught to rely on other people for your happiness. And it's interesting. I was just watching this video on spanking the other day, and like how that can really add to a person's like level of codependency, because it teaches children that they're going to be punished for kind of being who they are, and then it teaches them to think that they have to act a certain way to make their caretaker happy, and that will carry on into relationships as an adult too. So a lot of times, if you are codependent, you're focused on the other person and the other person's happiness, and is the other person growing, or are they showing up for themselves, rather than focusing on, like, am I growing? Am I showing up for myself? Am I happy? Like, what can I do to be better?
Mm-hmm.
I've also heard Sadhguru talk about how to have a happy relationship, you should never be focused on what the other person is giving to you, but what you can give to them and the relationship. And I was like, that's really good advice. I like that.
Yeah, that's so good. And I was listening to Mel Robbins. She had a podcast with her husband, and they were answering questions that their listeners had for the podcast about relationships, and it was really, really good, and I highly recommend. I think they've been married for like 30 years, and it was really cool to hear their perspective. But one of the things that she talks about is that, like, you have to realize, like, you cannot make your partner be happy. You can't make your partner feel a certain way. You can't control them or how they feel. You can only control how you feel, and pouring into yourself is the best thing that you can do. And I just thought that was so profound, honestly. Like, it kind of comes back to, like you said, like, how you can pour into the relationship. And obviously there are circumstances where you get to a point where if you're giving and giving and giving, and the other person's like taking, like, that's not working. But I think that though you can't force someone to change, or like make them be how you want them to be, or grow in the way that you're growing, or whatever it is, you can influence them into changing. I think that if they see you doing things that make you feel happy, or see you like waking up early and going to the gym, seeing you just do amazing things, like, that will inspire them to do that in their own way, instead of being like, I don't like how you do this, you should do it like this, and like trying to force that out of them. I think that they can just be more inspired by you by just watching it.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like, this doesn't have to be just a romantic relationship, but relationships with your family, your friends, anything like that. You're going to be attracting happier people and happier experiences if you are a happy person. And that sounds so simple, but most people, like, aren't really consciously aware of that. I did see a clip Haley had sent me from that talk. I love Mel Robbins. She is very logical when she speaks, and so everything just makes so much sense, and it's like, oh my gosh, yeah. But she was talking about how if you do try to change another person or force them into changing, it actually just creates like resentment, and it actually does the opposite. So they are really hardened, resistant to the concept of changing. I have experienced that personally a lot. Sorry. Sorry to a lot of people. I've learned the error of my ways. Sort of.
We just want what's best for you. Okay?
Literally, it comes from the best place, because it's like, if I love somebody, if I care about somebody, I want them to just have the best life and be the absolute best version of themselves. But again, you can never force or control anyone into changing, but you can inspire them into changing. If you are in a relationship, like I'm part of this group where today, it's like a high value woman group, right? And today a woman was commenting about how she's in a marriage and she's not happy and she feels like her husband doesn't cherish her. They have a new baby. And basically she's been efforting a lot in the relationship and not focusing on herself at all. And so she thinks that she needs to leave the relationship, but I'm honestly curious if she were to just start pouring into herself and focusing on herself and taking time for herself and doing what she loves, you know, and having fun and doing things that she values truly, and feeling like herself again, if the relationship dynamic would change. Because I do think that that is definitely possible. If you are in a relationship where you aren't feeling happy, pour into yourself. And a lot of people will say, you know, if a man's not giving you the energy or attention that you deserve, like, pull back. And sort of I agree with that, but I think more than pulling back, it's just pouring into yourself.
Yeah.
It's just focusing on you. It's putting yourself back on the pedestal, because you're always going to attract from somebody else how you feel about yourself.
Yeah, that's really a really great way to put it. You're not pulling away from the other person, you're pulling into yourself. I love that so much. In that same podcast episode with Mel Robbins, she was talking about how you should grow yourself to grow your relationship. And I think that especially if you've found yourself in a codependent relationship where you rely on another person to make quote unquote make you happy, you have to like realize that you have to take control of that yourself and make yourself happy. You cannot rely on another person to make you happy. And I think that if you kind of take that step back into yourself and pour into yourself and decide like, what do you need? And it doesn't have to be what you need from someone else, but what do you need from yourself? What do you need to do? What do you want? And start doing things that fill your cup. Because whatever that quote is, where like, you can't fill someone else's cup if yours is half empty or whatever. Like you have to fill your cup up. You have to know like what you want and who you are in order to feel like you are showing up in the world the way that you want to. And I think that you can blame your partner if you are in that codependent type situation. You can blame them for your unhappiness, but the truth is like, that's in your hands. You are in control of your own happiness, and you can take that step back and pour into yourself, and you can be happy whether, you know, you're with that person or not. But if you are happy and with that person, it's likely that the dynamic of that relationship is going to change. And regardless if it does or doesn't work out, you'll still be happy. Like,
exactly. Yeah, there's really no losing when you pour into yourself. And as you were talking, I was listening to Abraham Hicks one day, and she said, if you rely on another person to make you happy, they're going to let you down every time. Like other humans outside of you will let you down every time because they're focused on their own happiness. So they're not going to be there to consistently do what you want to make you happy. Like, you have to be that for yourself. If you are in a relationship where you're not feeling happy, and you do pour into yourself and you start doing the things that you value and the things that you love and improving yourself and growing yourself, if that person isn't meant for you and they're not expanding in those same ways, and they're dragging you down consistently, they're no longer a vibrational match to you. And then it won't be so difficult to leave the relationship. Like, it might even dissipate naturally on its own because you're just no longer a vibrational match. So there is no losing when you pour into yourself. Like, it is an absolute necessity no matter the situation.
Totally. It will become clear, like, when you are happy or in alignment, like, whether or not that person is meant for you. Like, it'll become easy. You won't feel like it's hard to let go of them. You're like, this is just meant to be. And I think that another thing in this realm of, like, not only what can you do to, like, make yourself happier, you can also think about, like, how you can better show up in the relationship. So if there's qualities or things that, like, your partner or, you know, the other person in the relationship are doing that you don't love, I think it's important to maybe, one, see how you might be reflecting that into your reality. Like, are you feeling that way yourself? Like, are you showing up in that way in the relationship as well? And this doesn't have to be a self-blaming thing or, like, it's your fault type of thing, but I think it's important to be mindful of, because I think that our reality is a reflection of our internal state. I also think that you can also start to think about, like, how well are you communicating? Like, did you communicate to the best of your ability in this scenario? Like, did you, like, Mel Robbins was talking about how she would start to resent her husband because he wasn't throwing a big birthday bash for her. But she never told him that she wanted a big birthday party thrown. Like, that wasn't, like, normal for him like, growing up. And, you know, he didn't desire that big bash himself, so he never thought about that. He didn't, like, realize that's something that she wanted. So then, you know, you start to feel maybe resentful towards your partner because they're not, quote unquote, treating you how you want to be treated. But did you communicate your needs to them or what you want to them? Because, like, they can't read your mind as much as we want, like, a Zayden to be able to read our mind. Like, most people probably can't. So just think about that when you are coming into, like, maybe roadblocks in a relationship. Like, are you doing the best that you can to show up in that relationship as well? And I think that if you are, and you've shared, like, your needs and, you know, what you want from that other person and your expectations, and they're still not showing up, I think that will also be another, like, clear way to be like, well, maybe this isn't working. But also the benefits of that are, you know, if they do show up how you're asking, you get to be treated how you want to be treated, which is so great.
Definitely. I also feel like when you are making sure that you're happy and aligned first, it's a lot easier to hold the boundaries because you value yourself enough to be like, you know what, this person crossed a boundary and I explained to them that I had this boundary and they chose to do it anyways. Like, now I have to end this, you know, and that can be friendships too. I see a lot of people who allow those boundaries to be crossed, and then it really just it hurts them, and it's something that they're allowing, you know. Mel Robbins also talked about compatibility versus commitment, and they are so seriously different. And it does suck. It is hard sometimes because I know I've been in relationships where I feel like we were both very committed, and especially if a long time goes by, it's really hard to be like, I'm just gonna end this, because it feels like you've put so much of your time and energy into it that you are very committed. And two people can be committed and they can be loyal and they can even love each other and still not be compatible, and that's such a big difference. So when she was talking about it, she was talking about marry somebody happy because you can't make somebody happy. And I think that's so true. But we also always hear everywhere all the time, you have to love yourself first and you have to be happy first. So I think it is so important to spend time by yourself and to make sure that you can be alone and happy, you know, before you get into a relationship with someone else, so that your happiness isn't reliant on them.
Yeah, that is so important. And I think a lot of that comes down to having like a sense of individuality and like knowing who you are. And when you are happy and in alignment and know who you are able to better set those boundaries and like have those tougher conversations, or like, you know, clarifying like what you expect from the relationship. This also makes me think of growing together as well. And if you are with someone who maybe isn't growing as much as you want them to, or like you want to encourage them to grow more, you can do things together that can help inspire that. You can do new things together. And I think that that is such a great way to explore that, whether that's like going to like a local little class of some sort, or learning how to do like a new little craft, like go to a little pottery class. You can travel, which we both love to do. And it is such an amazing thing to do with a partner. And it can be really rewarding, and you learn a lot about each other and about the world. And even there's even like cute little games that you can get that are like that encourage like communication with your partner and stuff like that. And I think just doing those little things to help like bring you guys together, but also that you can grow together from, and just inspire some of that like fresh energy can be so valuable.
Actually, I took a close relationship psychology course in college, and they said that the number one way to have a healthy relationship is to make sure that you're consistently having new experiences together. So I love that. And I'm sure, you know, if you've done that with a partner, you realize like it's so much fun and it brings you closer together. And it is a great way to grow as well. Okay, so we were talking about when you're happy, you inspire and attract happiness from a partner. Another kind of tie-in to this is a lot of women will nag. And I am guilty, okay? But instead of nagging, if you tell your partner like all the things that they do that you appreciate, or like, I love it so much when you clean the kitchen. Like, I feel so relieved when I come home to a clean kitchen. Instead of like, why can you not put the dishes in the dishwasher? It is not that hard. Trust me, I want to say it too. But, you know, doing it in that positive way usually has a better response and reaction from your partner.
Yeah, that's super good. That's so important, I think. Yeah, it's like focusing on the positive to welcome in more of the positive. It's like positive reinforcement.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I was just going to say the same thing.
Another thing that I loved that, I don't know if it was Mel Robbins or her husband that said it in their episode that they did, but they said that relationships, you're meant to co-create with each other. And obviously we've talked about co-creating with the universe. So I loved kind of bridging that with like a partner. You can co-create your little world together. And it is not about like turning one person into the other. Like, you don't want to just become the same person. It's not about making them do everything the way you want it to be done. And like, you know, like as an example, like celebrate holidays, you probably both have separate traditions. It's not about like making the other person like celebrate your traditions exactly your way. It's like bridging the two together. And I just think you're not trying to become one person or the same person, but like bringing your two worlds together to co-create a new one. And yeah, I just think that that is just so healthy and so like lovely to think about, instead of like feeling like you have to just all think the same things and believe the same things. And it's not necessarily like that. I think if you have similar values and you know, you have like similar goals and similar values, I think that that is important. But then having like individuality still, like you're still different people. You don't have to be the same, you know?
So I think that can be a challenge for a lot of people. I feel like, including myself, because when you've been alone for a long time, you get really like set in your ways. And then when somebody is doing something so different than you and you're like, don't like do it this way. But I think that control comes from like a fear of vulnerability. So in a relationship, you have to learn how to like let go of that control. And as my grandmother has said, choose your battles, because, you know, some things there is a right and a wrong way. But a lot of things, like, okay, they're getting it done. I'm just going to let them do it their way, you know, or when it comes to like, yeah, traditions or spending time with family, things like that, like adapting and combining, you know, or if they have hobbies they love, like maybe you could try them out too. Like maybe you could go do them with them once in a while. It doesn't mean it has to be your favorite thing, but like just being open to adapting the things that they like to do and allowing them to be themselves too.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I agree. I think that that's just, it's, yeah, they can be their own person.
And I know it can be tough, but like, I'm telling you.
I feel like it would get kind of like boring too if like they didn't have like their own life or their own personality, or you'd just be like, you're like, I personally just think that is like attractive in a person to like have their own sense of self
and to know who they are. Definitely. Yeah. Because you don't want somebody, as much as you might think you do, you don't want somebody exactly like you, and nobody is going to be exactly like you. I think, you know, as kids, we grow up watching Disney fairy tales and we think that relationships are going to be so easy. And they can be, you know, they can be fun and easy, but they can also be a challenge. I think that that's realistic, that there's going to be some level of challenge within a relationship. And if there's not, like, is it growing? You know?
Yeah. Also, if you think about it, like, say you're planting like a garden and like you're trying to plant your seeds, and then maybe there's some that aren't like, you know, popping up and starting to grow. You don't like get mad and yell at them and be like, you're stupid, why aren't you growing or doing it right? Like, then you plant another seed in there, and then maybe you give it a little extra water this time, or like make sure it has sunlight. And I don't know, I think that it's like relationships are much more about like nurturing and nourishing the relationship or one another, so that you can grow together and create like a safe environment to grow together, instead of, you know, like leaning back, leaning out, leaning away from each other when things are hard. Like just really focusing on like the togetherness part, and not like you against me when things are, you know, going awry or whatever. Like yeah,
especially, you know, if you're having disagreements, it's unfortunate. I think a lot of us will think like it's me against you and I'm right and you're wrong. But if you're in a relationship, it's me and you against the problem. Like, what is the solution? Not who's right. Because if you're just arguing to be right, like, you're going to lose every time. You want to lose the relationship? Do you want to lose the connection? You want to lose the love? That's what you're winning.
Yeah.
Like, that's not the solution ever.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah. One other thing Mel Robbins and her husband were talking about is how with their kids, Mel's normally like the yes. Like, I need a ride? Yes. You want a car? Yes. And then the dad's like the no. Like, no, you don't need a car. Like, no, you don't need, no. And so they both realized that they both didn't know why they were like the yes and the no. Like, and so they realized they needed to start maybe being like, maybe, and then like having that conversation with the other parent. So I think that can be kind of taken in a larger context as well, of like, instead of just being so like certain one way or the other, like allow room for the maybe, allow room for the like opportunity to come together and maybe create a new solution, or like just not having it be like it's your way or my way. Like, you're coming together to like create what works best for you both. So kind of like create space for the maybe, the in between, the compromise.
I love thinking about the concept of divine oneness, that we are all infinitely and divinely connected. And if you look up like quantum entanglement, it's actually a scientific term, and it's proven that we are actually all divinely connected. And then there's the law of polarity, stating that there must be an equal and opposite end to everything. But I don't really think that anything is necessarily wrong or right. It's just the judgment that we put on it. And judgments are often learned, you know. And I would say there are some things like murder. Most of us agree it's wrong, like, yeah, of course. Like, but that said, a lot of opinions are just that. They're opinions. And it doesn't mean that I'm right and you're wrong. Like, we can both be right and think completely different things. And I think part of being in a relationship is accepting, like, this person might think this completely different thing about this subject, but I can still love them.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, like, one of my best friends, like, we do have really different opinions on certain topics, but I think because we genuinely, like, unconditionally love each other, and so we can, like, have deep conversations about these hard topics and be like, well, this is why I think this. And because we love each other, we'll genuinely listen to what the other person is saying, even if it's totally different from what we believe, and we'll be like, oh, well, actually, I understand why you think that. And, like, maybe we can meet somewhere in the middle. And often we do, and we'll teach each other things, and we'll both grow from that because we are open to hearing that other perspective.
Yeah. I think that's so important to have that, like, that you both unconditionally love each other environment, because it's, like, safe. Like, you feel like you can let, like, your walls down and have that conversation where, like, potentially in a relationship, if you have, like, a fear of vulnerability or something and you haven't, like, surrendered to that, like, feeling of, like, knowing that person truly loves you and they want the best for you, like, you're immediately going to be, like, resistant and, like, pushing back. Like, that's where it comes to, like, I just need to be right because I feel threatened, and, like, I just, like, need to be right.
Yeah,
and
it's your subconscious protecting itself,
Yeah. So if you can, again, like, lean into that other person, and just, create that safe environment for both of you to, like, feel like you can let the walls down so you don't have to be defensive. And then you can have, like, genuine conversations about things, whether or not you both believe, like you were talking about, like, whether or not you both have the same opinions on something. Like, you can listen and understand where the person's coming from, and you don't have to, like, agree with them, but you can still love them and have a conversation about it.
Yeah, and listen to hear, not just, like, listen to respond, and interestingly, and we know everything's connected, but, like, that goes back to, if you unconditionally love yourself and you're, like, really solid within yourself and confident, you know who you are, then you're not worried about, is this person gonna hurt me, because I'm still just as valuable whether or not they agree with me, or whether or not they approve of me, or, anything of that sort. And I think that really being sure within yourself like that allows you to be really vulnerable. Like, here we go again. Russ talks about, like, putting his boundaries down and being really vulnerable, and even in his music, like, completely publicly being vulnerable, because people can't use your vulnerabilities against you if you're allowing yourself to expose them, and if you're not afraid to expose them, because you're so sure within yourself, and it does create much deeper connection when you are able to be vulnerable.
Yeah. Then you do attract vulnerability in other people as well, and then you help, like, create that space where people feel safe to be vulnerable.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, bringing it back to, you were talking about making sure you communicate in your relationship. So we have an episode on divine feminine and masculine energies, and I think that you really do have to have a good balance of those within relationships. And part of being in your feminine energy is communicating, and is communicating in a feminine way. So say that you, like, really want your partner to, I don't know, take you out for your birthday or something like that, right? Instead of, like, taking the lead and being in the masculine role and being like, we're going here and doing this and, like, paying for it and doing all the controlling and the planning, you can say, baby, I would really love it if we did this. Like, it would be so much fun. I love when we go out together, and communicating what you want or how you feel or how something makes you feel, because men are very responsive to that. Like they want to make you happy. They really are golden retriever energy. I love it. But they do want to make you happy, you know? And if you tell them like, baby, it makes me so happy when you do this, they're going to be way more likely to do it than if you're like yelling at them to do it, you know, or
just wishing they just knew.
Yeah. Or just wishing they knew. And there are a lot of people too, which I've definitely done this in past relationships. If you've been in unhealthy relationships, even if it was in your childhood, it can be easy to just go cold. When you're upset, instead of being like, hey, you said this or you did this and it really hurt me, this is how it made me feel, just completely shut down and like not talk to them, or just be kind of mean or rude, or completely pull back, or, you know, just block them, or whatever. Like it's easy to just completely like shut down and be cold and give them the cold shoulder than it is to be like, hey, that actually really hurt me.
When you do that as well, like you are preventing both your growth and your partner's growth, like you're as a relationship. But when you do that, you are like suppressing a part of yourself that needs to be expressed.
Yeah.
And so that's not like acting out of alignment, or like, you know, you're not allowing yourself to like alchemize those feelings from potentially maybe your childhood or whatever. Like you're suppressing that down and down and down and down, and then you're going to create more resentment for maybe your partner or yourself, and just create a lot more problems.
Absolutely. And I feel like too, like a lot of people in the past have portrayed women as emotional and crazy at times, but it is an alignment to express yourself. And sometimes people will feel fear to genuinely and vulnerably express themselves because they think that they'll be rejected in doing that. But the thing is, if you are genuinely and authentically expressing yourself, and you're doing it in a calm and logical manner, especially, and if you're not, who cares? Like, you're a human being, like things happen, you know, but at least that you are genuinely expressing yourself, and that person isn't receptive of it, or, you know, won't agree to whatever it is that your boundary is, or is going to leave you because you expressed yourself, then they're not meant for you.
Yeah.
You know, but you have to communicate in a relationship, and you have to be able to be vulnerable enough to do that in a genuine way.
Yeah. I love that both like communication and like expression and like emotions are all aspects of like the feminine energy. So those are all things that you should maybe think about or work towards if you're wanting to tap more into your feminine energy. And when you do that, you will attract more of the masculine energy from your partner just naturally. And I think that that can be a helpful way to kind of change up the dynamic. If you are wanting your partner to be more masculine, you can think about, how can I show up more femininely? Like, how can I tap more into my feminine energy? Because like you said, they're really receptive to that. And it'll help them just like step into that.
Absolutely. And I feel like men, like, it is natural for them to be in their masculine. And when they really are truly grounded in that, they can be so calm and so receptive that even if you do get upset, they're like, oh, honey, you need a hug. Like, they're not like, I'm going to scream at you and, you know, like have a big fight with you. Like, and they're also not afraid to be vulnerable because they are really grounded within themselves too, you know?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're wanting to know a little more about like masculine and feminine energies, we highly recommend checking out that episode. I think it's close to being one of our first, like top 10, like our
in the
first
beginning.
10. That's a good follow-up episode to this, I think, if you want to explore those concepts a little more too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Do you have any more to add to this one?
I don't think so.
All right. With that, we'll pull a card for you guys and leave you with a message. We're pulling from the Moon Witch Tarot deck. This is our fave. Such a good one. That's the one. Okay, so 2 of Cups. I don't think there could be a more perfect card for this episode. I will show you, if you're watching the video, I'll show you the card. So if you're not watching, it is two women holding their cups, talking to each other. They're next to some water. So cups represents water, flow, change, and also hearts. So this can be definitely about emotions and love, and the heart chakra. And then there's a bunch of stars in the background. I think this is going to be about relationships.
Yes, it is perfect. So the main themes for this card are friendship, partnership, connection, unity, respect, and cooperation.
Can't make this up.
So this card depicts two witches holding golden cups and peacefully talking to each other. They're joining forces to pursue their goals and committing to share with one another. Together, they form a perfect balance. When the Two of Cups appears in a reading, it usually suggests the start of a new relationship or an exciting collaboration or creative partnership. It may also preface the successful development of an existing relationship, whether romantic or platonic. Perhaps you share mutual interests and dreams, or you treat each other with respect. The aura of harmony and respect is always present when you are together. It could also signify a reconciliation between you and someone else, finally reaching a compromise or mutual understanding. A little more of a shadow aspect of this card that I'll share if maybe you are experiencing contrast in relationships. It can point to a lack of harmony, support, or trust in your relationship. There may also be a presence of jealousy. And the main lesson of the shadow is to love yourself unconditionally. Everything starts with self-love. When you love, accept, and honor yourself unconditionally, you show up as your best self. You treat yourself with respect and do not expect anything less from others. You do not project any worries or insecurities on the people around you. You trust and love yourself, and the world reflects that back to you.
Exactly. Exactly what we said.
That's so good. I love it.
Yeah, that's perfect. And we kind of did touch on projection a tiny bit when you were talking about, like, if something's going wrong in the relationship, asking yourself, like, how you're showing up. But we do tend to project on other people. So if there's certain things that your partner does that are really upsetting you, ask yourself, just do a little self check-in. Am I also doing that? Because sometimes we hate within others what we actually hate within ourselves. And so if we can heal that, then it dissipates all of that negativity.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Even if you have any insecurities about yourself, you can project that in a relationship. If you have judgments, anything, you can project that in a relationship. And that can be, this was alluding to, not just romantic relationships, but platonic relationships, family relationships. Your internal world gets reflected in those relationships. So just pay attention. And we were talking about, in situations maybe where you want to shut down, instead of shutting down, that is your trigger to think about how can I grow from this and be better in my relationship from this, instead of doing the same reaction that you typically have towards something that might upset you.
Mm-hmm. And just remember, relationships are our biggest source of expansion. So no matter where you are, if you're in a relationship, of course you're in some sort of relationship with other human beings, but whether or not you're in a romantic relationship or a happy relationship, everything does serve a purpose of expansion for us, and everything does happen as it's meant to. I really believe that. So yeah, I'm so thankful for relationships.
Yeah.
I am. Yeah. All right. Well, as always, thanks for joining us. Thanks for helping us raise the frequency, and we appreciate your relationship with us.
We do. Thank you so much, and we can't wait to see you in the next episode. Make sure to subscribe, comment, reach out to us. We're here. We love to hear it, and we'll just see you next time.
Bye.